Hi everyone, Mature Simmer here. Early spring, first day of spring, and it is time to get this part of the field plowed so that we are ready for planting tomorrow. I'll likely go ahead and get my planter. So there we go, we've got what we need. Quite sure what. Oh, am I stuck on a branch? Probably. Alright. So we'll get going that way. Gotta run some headlands, obviously, first. So we'll run 2 passes. Takes a little while for this thing to settle down. Got it lowered now. And we are plowing. Alright, so the good news is this is one of the quicker jobs because it's 11 miles an hour, so it doesn't go at 7 or 6. The other thing we've got to remember, we have to plow and then we have to roll. And then we should be good, although we might have to plow, plant, and roll. I don't remember. But we'll have to see also if we kick up any non-small rocks. So I'm going to try this year to roll the rocks, because what I didn't know last time was that small rocks, the yellow ones, will get pushed back under with rolling. But I don't know if that means that whatchamacallit, that if we plant before that, if we take damage, I'm not quite sure. So that's where there's a little bit of that question as I continue to learn a little bit of the FS22 dynamics. But either way, we've got a good amount of work to do today. I'll probably again split into a couple videos, because otherwise we're going to be multiple hours all in one, and that doesn't make too much sense, especially since it's certainly 2 distinctive jobs. So it's not as if I'm breaking one or the other, and I honestly don't recall if rolling is at this speed or if rolling proceeds slower, but I do know the roller is wider, so in any event it's certainly easier that way. Just getting my dots set, you know, my favorite dots. Get ourselves visible here. There we go. And then I think our 0 point will actually be off the field a bit, because I was setting my track as I was rolling up onto the field, which is kind of really what I should be doing, getting all my implements ready prior to engagement on the field. But yeah, this should be more than enough from a headlands perspective, and then we'll start heading down. So actually we've got 0 there, but and 1, so let me circle around. At this point, you know the drill at the corner here. So I knew I was a little bit short. Alright, that'll do that. we're down, and we will go. And once again, by the time we're down at the end, we'll kind of have lost more than half the track, but literally starting on -1, we'll probably have to be shifting things or breaking this into a few actual working sessions, so that always means that I'm resetting the GPS, so we won't be able to see a whole lot of continuation here that I know of all the way to the end, but who knows? Stranger things have happened. And then the bigger question is going to be, I have no reason to believe that the weeds are not going to reappear, but we will find out as we go through this cycle. So the other thing I did in the off time is I did finally survey this field. So I went ahead and measured it just as I had the northern end. So this long edge came out to be 782 meters. So it's about a little over 3/4 of a kilometer in length, which is a little crazy to think about, but the bottom edge then across, before it starts kind of heading back up, is 280 meters. In comparison, if you think about the top edge across on the north side of the field, that's 215 meters. So this part is, probably 25% or so wider than that. And then heading back up, roughly, again, I kind of made this a rectangular measurement. Just thinking, if I'm off an acre or two, I don't know that it's going to change things substantially. So then going up was 567 meters. So the entire length of the long edge of the north field is 604 meters. So the short edge of this field here is nearly the size of the north field, to give you an idea. So you could think of it another way, that that basically this rectangular part of the field and up until it widens is the same size as the north field in total. So you could encompass the north field in this space, basically, just up to the north end of the islands and so forth. So that might give you some perspective on that. It's not entirely accurate because some of the field is wider than the 280 meters, but gives you an idea. Then going over across the top edge, so the north edge where we've got the root cellar living on, that will probably come into view here shortly, is 480 meters. That compares to 442 meters of the width of the north field. So just a smidge, 10% or so larger. And I measured that to, you can see where the field kind of angles. That's about where that was. And so the thought was, again, that area of the field coupled with that little extra over there. If I look over the island, if you remember, the field sits out a bit. I gave that a rough estimate of, okay, that probably is covering a good portion of these islands. And so once again, just like on the north field, we didn't take out the island. We folded pieces of field in and basically said that was the square. Kind of doing the same thing, but just assuming now we have to make up for some of the island space. So there's a possibility, again, that we've got a bit more island than I think, and that therefore the field is a different size. And so basically, again, the key measurements: 480 across the top, 782 down the side, 280 across the southern edge, 567 up the edge we just ended on, And then you can basically figure out the other two dimensions with math. I didn't write them down, so I can't rattle them off to you as quickly as I could the others. But when you do all that, do the calculations, this field comes out to be 64.73 acres, and that is compared to 53.5 acres on the north end. So this is about 11 acres larger. Or if we are comparing to our old haunts in Ohio, over 2 Field 97s larger, or pretty much half of almost every other field that I had in Hilly Seneca. So that can give you a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at. But this is, as I anticipated, the larger of the halves. So that may or may not play into things. I mean, again, it's not, it is mathematically about 20% larger than the north side. But, so that makes it sound bigger than, it's 11 acres bigger. But, so, certainly things to take into consideration when I'm trying to plan out what to do, but the reality is I'm just kind of alternating north-south, north-south. I did then go ahead also and measure out, in essence, the center without the little pieces that stick out. So I guess if you think of it from coming out of the yard, if you think of it like a really fat stem T, where the T, is really wide in the stem, and then there's just tiny little pieces that stick out. I ignored those pieces that stuck out, and again, that was 230 meters and 105 meters, and I think that basically came out to be like 5-ish some acres. 5.6 is kind of what I'm remembering. I don't have that one ingrained in my head as much. So all together, adding those up, they come up to be, like I said, an acre or two larger than what additional field info is reporting as our total field, which I think is 122 and change. And I think you come up to like 124 with those measures. So, as I said, maybe we misestimated on the islands, and if we take those islands out, that ends up being an additional 2 acres removed. Not sure. But in the grand scheme of things, that's what I'm using for math, because if nothing else, that's my base, and at least I'll be able to compare how things function on those fields. So the other thing I accomplished in the time off, aside from continue, do other sims and get all kinds of other interesting things out on the channel for folks to look at, other than Farming Simulator, was I finally went ahead and I modified and added to my spreadsheet another column, which is simply profit per liter. I could have done cost per liter, profit per liter, just like I had done cost per acre, profit per acre, but in the end, I'm looking at the result, and those ratios obviously kind of stay the same. So if I know the cost against the profit, the cost per acre against the profit per acre, it's easy enough to back into the other one if I need it at some point for an analysis, but it's not as if I'm not going to put the work in on the field, which is the cost side of it, putting all the supplies in, the fertilizer, the herbicide if necessary, the seed, the lime, so forth and so on. So I've got that in, and I went ahead, as I did with the other columns, and basically put that in on everything all the way back. So I don't know what I'll learn, if anything, over time between Ohio and Canada. I'm sure I'll see some difference, and so the question really is not necessarily, is it truly the maps that are impacting it, or is it the game version? Because obviously one was FS19, this is FS22, and that question will obviously eternally be unanswered, because unless I suddenly decide to have and actually get responses in long conversations with programmers from giants, I'm never going to have a clue if they did anything differently and what it was between the two game versions. So, and as I said, I'll have another basically farm finances video that will pop up that I'll go through some of what I learned once I truly kind of understand what I learned, because while I did add the columns into the spreadsheet, I didn't take any time to truly analyze anything. So all I know are raw numbers, and the one thing I know for certain is I saw crops as high as 80 cents per liter profit, and then sadly I think our potatoes, if not the lowest profit per liter, are right up there with 17 cents, but obviously they're higher yielding. So, you know, that's kind of the trade-off is, you know, did I get more profit? And we'll cover that again in some detail, but I didn't get much. This is certainly, the potatoes were definitely not something that I'm gonna make this farm become affluent on, because I think it was, I mean, it was well below 500,000 in profit. I think it was about 350 or so, because if I remember the rough numbers, again, it was about $106,000 in cost that went into this field. And that's actually, once again, if we're being honest, we need to realize that is low because we didn't have to spray for weeds. We also didn't include any lime cost, and we never really specifically do to any crop. It just shows up in the year that we apply lime and figure out over the life of the farm it's going to wash out. So, you know, there's some costs that are theoretically missing that might not be insubstantial, especially with the herbicide. But don't forget, lime spreads in vast quantities, so while it's less per liter, the amount we're putting down, you know, I still think we had, I forget if it was $80,000 or $100,000 in lime across all the, the entire field, because once again we plowed and limed all of Field 9 when we took ownership here in Misty Brook of Field 9 here. And then we, through the commodity broker using C5, were able to obtain that price of $225 per 1,000 liters on the commodities market. And for our in excess of 2 million liters that we had, that was, I think, about 462,000. So again, if, using round numbers, 460, 110, take 110 away from 460, 350. So that was our profit. There were definitely crops and years in Seneca that I exceeded $700,000, $800,000 in profit. So, but I'm not necessarily comparing, and that's where it's important to have those per acre and per liter metrics, because I'm not running as many acres here every year. This coming harvest is going to be more of a return to that, just because of how it'll work out. Well, and that's not entirely true because the wheat harvest won't actually be till next year. So that kind of cycles us then back to the farm plan as we sit here and continue to get this field plowed and ready to go. My goal is, as much as possible, to continue to support the Suez project, because it just is a fun thing to do, and kind of feeling that sense of joint purpose when we're working on things and seeing the stats go up and know that, hey, we contributed, in this case, potatoes to however many chips are added in. And again, I don't know if I'm going to know the ratio. I mean, I think I can probably ask someone who's doing that work how many liters of potatoes they need to make a bag of chips. But even if it's, say, 5, that probably means we're going to have, of everything we pulled off this field, will have contributed about 400,000 out of 7.5 million bags of chips. So barely a drop in the bucket, but it would still be, over 5%. So it's not nothing, and doing that in one harvest, one horrendously time-consuming harvest, it's still not nothing. I mean, it's still something to feel, a sense of happiness that we accomplished. But as I said, it was too much. I mean, there's just no way I, at this point, want to go through that again. So I am not going to have that type of contribution again to the chip increase on the project. But I will do what I can, and so the other 2 crops that we can produce, and I think really they're the only other 2 crops that are necessary in this prep phase of the Suez Canal, is wheat and corn. So that is what I will be doing. But because of how things are staggered, what that means here for year 82, that we're technically just starting today, is we're going to plant corn here, and then we're going to be planting wheat up at the north end. But in the interim there, I believe the corn harvest, you can take a look at the calendar here. Okay, so you can see we're going to plant corn. Then we actually need to plant the wheat. Then we will harvest the corn that we have. So that is what is happening this year, or this seasonal cycle on the farm. And then we will harvest the wheat the following year. And that may be all we do that following year. So this year will be quite busy, but then more than likely next year, there will be a little bit of a pause as we wait until spring to likely put something back in this area of the field. But we will also have to replow, because corn requires plowing after planting. So we will have that involvement again. So the hope is that these weeds stay at bay because of the plowing, because then it's somewhat of a trade of plowing for spraying of herbicide on the field. And so the workload is hopefully about the same. I mean, again, the working width of the sprayer is wider, but it travels slower. I'd have to look at my work time calculator to truly see what it looks like, and I might find out it's very close, because the sprayer goes at 7 miles an hour, if I recall, and this obviously moves at 11, so about 50% faster, but it's also more than, or about a little less than 50% as wide, because this is a 18-meter plow, if I recall, and it's a 33-meter sprayer. So certainly less passes, but slower ones. So, if I recall, maybe I'll run that comparison at some point and share the details with you. Maybe between sessions I'll hop out and try to add that detail in. Well, there's a little bit of rocks. And again, even if they're medium, it's just as long as they're yellow, is my understanding, and they don't move into the other colors like orange and red, the roller will just push them back. But to be sure that I get the proper effect, if the map won't tell me at the end of this that I need to roll, I will wait. I will then plant, and then I will roll. So we may not be doing rolling right after this. We'll see how everything lays out. So, so that kind of gets you up to speed on what we've learned, what we've done, new things on the farm, where we are headed. And clearly where I am headed here is some more plowing. Not a lot, but more than half, certainly. So I will keep plugging away here, and I will see you in a bit. So just completed the plowing of the field. It is ready to go from that respect. So we're going to move on to our next step next time, which is rolling the field. I'll see you next time.